Former Eskom CEO Matshela Koko claims the findings in the Zondo Commission report are inconsistent with the evidence contained in the latest installment of that state capture report, which focuses on Eskom. Koko added that he is looking at taking the report on judicial review after it was found he was an integral component of the Gupta family's strategy to capture Eskom. The reports also recommended that the National Prosecuting Authority should investigate Koko with a view to possibly instituting prosecutions for violating the Public Finance Management Act, as well as for fraud and corruption. Koko says another option he has is waiting on the National Prosecuting Authority. All right, so let's look at installment number 4 of the State Capture Report, Commission report. Joining us to discuss further is political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe. Professor, let's start with Matshela Koko and Brian Molefe. So these were two top Eskom execs. How strong is this report in terms of linking them to state capture? Because we know people have been disappointed with the reports coming out saying further investigation is needed on many individuals. How far does the Zondo Commission go in the case of these two execs?
Well, I think what the Zondo did indicate is people who should be the suspects. I mean, there was a crime committed, there's money that has moved hands, and there were people who have been identified. And with some, he had indicated that there should be further investigation. With some, he had come to a position that they should be prosecuted. But as we know, with this type of inquiry, it is an inquiry that does not lead to cross-examination of the witnesses. And one of the things that Koko had actually said is that if you read the report, especially when it relates to him, it says somewhere Zondo acknowledges that Zondo, did not read his affidavit. He referred to the affidavit of other people, and he found that behavior as very shameful. And somewhere he has even suggested that the Chief Justice had actually gone crazy. So he's following on the footsteps of many other people, like Gwede Mantashe, who had also threatened to take the report for review.
Yeah.
So the issue here, unfortunately, is none of them has actually done so yet. And we do not know what the position of the NPA is. But there are two issues that one must look at. One is that you are dealing with a judge whose word, one would probably say, carries a greater weight than that of a prosecutor. To say, based on the evidence that's before me, I would suggest that there should be prosecution and or even investigation. But when he does so, he uses his experience and expertise to make that judgment.
Yeah.
So if one assumes that the weighting of a judge and a chief justice for that matter is bigger than that of an opinion of a prosecutor, then you take what the Chief Justice says. But at the same time, we also know that judges do err. I mean, we've seen Judge Zondo himself being interrogated. And I don't think during when he was running for the position of Chief Justice, he didn't dress himself in glory. So the fact that he could have erred, and also his acknowledgement that he may not have read something actually creates a problem. But what one will say from the perspective of people who are saying, now it's time for President Ramaphosa to act, then they are actually saying he cannot ignore the fact that Judge Zondo has fingered somebody like Gwede Mantashe. So the question is, why is the president not asking Gwede Mantashe to step aside while he resolves this other matter? He has not done so. So the ANC does not seem to be consistent in its approach.
Well Professor, isn't the president waiting basically for a prosecution to happen? It seems like that is the stance. So he doesn't ask ministers to step aside just on the basis of a report. But the NPA, everything is now, the ball is in the court of the NPA, as it were.
Well, the problem with that is that then these issues are going to take long, and the ANC must actually decide. As people had almost suggested that the ANC was going to take a view that when people are implicated in some wrongdoing, they need to step aside. But you must also understand that the charging of somebody by the NPA is simply an expression of a prosecutor that there's a prima facie case here. And Judge Zondo has also said similar with other people. So the issue is, are you going to be waiting? We know that there are people like Paul Mashatile who are also recipient of money that Zondo suggests that it's a proceed of a crime. What are you going to do with those people? And the issue here is, could the NPA be selective in saying, despite the information that you have not shown great agency in dealing with certain people, but you have shown that great agency in dealing with other people. I mean, I keep on referring people to the case of Duduzane, where the NPA rushed based on the media reports to charge him. Yeah. So why can't they do the same? So the issue is, if we're going to deal with matters like this, the NPA must also be seen to be acting beyond reproach. It cannot be seen to be saying, these people belong to a particular faction, and we're going to act against them. And these ones do not belong to, so they will be lukewarm about it. And that is what the people are really concerned about at the moment.
So surely big questions will be asked if Matshela Koko and Brian Molefe are not charged. Is that what you're saying? And pretty quickly.
Well, I think they should be. I mean, if there is a prima facie case, the NPA is obligated by law to charge. But we also know that the NPA had investigated them even outside the Zondo, because nothing prevented the NPA or what you call the SIU to investigate these people and present information to the NPA. And they have a more intrusive measures to get other information relating to these people, like taking their cell phones and all that. The question that we need to ask, after so many years, what is it that the NPA does not have to move with great speed? But they're on the basis of only the Zondo Commission and the witnesses that are there, then there's going to be a lot of almost challenge that will emerge, because the information that is given there was not subjected to serious cross-examination.
Professor, final question for you. What are the political implications of the mentioning of former President Jacob Zuma? Again, suggesting he was part of the state capture project. He, along with the Guptas, were integral in getting Eskom executives moved out of the way for more compliant people in the state utility.
Well, I mean, Zuma is a former president of the country. So if we're talking about moving forward, yes, he may have a lot of supporters, but what is most important is the NPA to formulate charges. And it is in the formulation of those charges that people will look at how he had actually played in, as Zondo said, he was central in the state capture. He was central in making sure that the Gupta were almost raiding or trying to influence the treasury and government, and also the appointment of ministers. So it is really in the formulation. But if it is going to be something that is less clear and that does not exist specifically in law, it will be very difficult for them to proceed. But all I'm also saying is all these people have been investigated by SIU, and they did not need to wait for the Zondo Commission based on witnesses who have never been cross-examined thoroughly to be able to charge the people. And the NPA did almost promise that they were going to charge people like Molefe. And Molefe says, I've been waiting for the charges. And Koko is saying, bring it on. But he was also saying, when it comes to Zondo, he finds his behavior to have been shameful. And he even suggests that there are other irregularities that have occurred that are bigger, where a lot of money was wasted. At least what we know is that right now, Zondo has put the money on the state capture to about 14.7 billion, which is different from the 500 billion that people had actually put. So at least now we're dealing with the facts and with numbers that they have come out from the testimonies that were presented.
All right, we watch and we wait to see if action will be taken. Thank you very much for your analysis, political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe.